With all the crazy things happening, some of you may not have noticed, but Joe Biden silently renewed the Trading with the Enemies Act in order to continue the embargo against Cuba. Now, the Trading with the Enemies Act is something that has to be renewed every year, and every president since JFK has continued to renew this act. Now, I'll save you the grand story, but most of you all know the United States considers Cuba an enemy because Fidel Castro not only refused to allow Cuba to bow down to Western imperialism, but he also desegregated the country and even used his military and resources to help other countries liberate themselves in his time as president of Cuba. Now, they claim, of course, this embargo is because of communism. But in reality, if communism was all that bad and such a failure, why not just let them fail? Why punish Cuba by enacting an embargo and then punish everyone that you are allied with if they decide to do business with Cuba? Because if communism sucks, then it sucks, and you shouldn't have to do anything to stop it from being successful. But in that memorandum, he did not actually give a reason as to why he wants to continue this embargo. So interestingly enough, last year, at the end of the year, the United Nations voted to lift this blockade. Everybody voted to lift this blockade, except for 3 countries. The United States, of course. But the other 2 countries are far more interested. Israel and Ukraine. Yep, the 2 countries the United States just gave $8 billion apiece to not even a week ago. You heard me right. The US just funded genocide a week ago. Which is why I brought up the point. I don't know why they still are continuing the embargo in Cuba. And I find it problematic he didn't list the reasons as to why. Because is Cuba committing a genocide or breaking treaties like Israel or Ukraine? No. Cuba actually has democratic elections, so it can't be that. And at the moment, Israel, or rather Netanyahu, is waging every war with every country that he can think of in order to maintain power. And Ukraine has not only suspended elections, but even kicked out other political parties, which Cuba has not done. So what exactly is Cuba guilty of that only the United States, Israel, and Ukraine can see, but nobody else in the world thinks that they're guilty of? And the answer is simple. They're guilty of pissing off the United States and not bending over to allow Western imperialists to peg them raw with no lubrication. And to me, it merely confirms that the United States punishes your country if you do not engage in tyranny, if you do not wage needless wars, if you do not have neo-Nazis running your country's government and military, if you do not carry out a genocide. I mean, do I need to go on? At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with communism. Because like I said, if communism was such a failure, then just let them fail. But it should be mentioned that there is a genuine fear that communism could be successful if the West does not interfere. And they can't have that. But the fact that this is called the Trading with the Enemies Act, and you are calling Cuba your enemy, but not the genocidal maniacs and the neo-Nazis? Well, that kind of tells us all we need to know about the United States and their intentions. So if you're a foreign country, or hell, even somebody in the United States who might need some aid, just go commit a genocide or like tattoo a swastika on your arm. Maybe then you could finally get some aid from the United States.